Good afternoon, everybody out there. My name is Rosemary Manners and I'm an integrative pharmacist. And each week I have a show to tell you something new about health. Today's show is one of my pet conversations. I love having this conversation. It affects every family. And that is preconception care, is it important? Do we need to bother about it? And there's some great studies and we want to talk about it and we want to sort of get it out there. So even if you're not thinking about having a baby, there's somebody in your family that might be, or there's one of your friends' family might be. So it's really good to be able to share some studies you might have already seen. I've been sharing studies already about whether preconception care, whether we need to bother about it and why we need to bother about it. And I have this conversation, actually I've had it twice this week in the pharmacy, and that's what inspires me with my health teach programs, is what I find in the pharmacy. And I have these conversations like, let's all get together, let's talk about preconception care. And then I get the client that says, oh, my husband isn't interested, or my boyfriend doesn't want to come, or I don't have the time. Well, if you have time to have a baby, you have time to think about it and talk about it and make sure that you've got the healthiest baby. The outcome is going to be easier and a healthy baby, and you'll have a sort of like a easy pregnancy. And the other thing I hear, and I hear it quite a lot, is I'm healthy. I eat a healthy diet. But my question is that enough? And I'm going to show you some studies which might make you think that it might not be quite enough. If you're just eating a healthy diet, you might do a bit of exercise. But I'm going to put myself out there and say, well, the evidence is that's not enough for preconception care. You've actually got to do something very active to be able to clean things up, clean up what's happening inside you before you introduce a baby into the picture. So let me tell you a story. So what we're going to talk about for a little while is about umbilical cords. So that's the cord that goes from the baby to the mother inside the womb, and it pumps blood, the equivalent of 300 quarts. That's an American, but it's quite a lot of blood, and it goes back and forth each day. And what we are interested in is what's happening. So there's some really landmark studies, and I'm going to read some of them out so that I get it exactly right. So in 2004 was the first study where they wanted to look at umbilical cord blood. And it was done by the Environmental Working Group. You can easily look it up online. And there was 2 laboratories. They randomly chose 10 mothers and started studying the umbilical blood. And what they revealed is that blood contained 287 chemicals. Shall I say that again? 287 chemicals. And it was collected after the cords were cut. And it was pesticides, there was ingredients, there was waste, there was coal, there was gasoline, there was garbage. And that's the first recorded study. Now, the study was redone in 2009. I've also seen another study coming out of Canada. I've seen some more studies coming out of Europe. So it's all been done again and again. So the study represented the first cord blood test. And the detection was 209 different chemicals. Among them was 8 petrofluorochemicals, such as stain, oil repellents, fast food packaging, clothes and textiles. There was Teflon, and there were chemicals that they haven't been able to isolate as well. There was fire retardants and there was pesticides. 180 of them cause cancer in humans. They've already been found to cause cancer in humans. 217 are neurotoxins, so that affects the brain and the nervous system. 208 will cause birth defects and abnormal development in animals. And then the mixture together has never been studied. So what if I've got one fire retardant with one nervous system poison? The studies for those two together, on the unborn child, it's not even there. So I think these studies of what's happening for the baby inside the womb is so important, and it's so important to understand it. So many of the chemicals that they found, so many of the out of the 209 chemicals they found are called EDCs. and that stands for endocrine disrupting chemicals. And that endocrine system is your hormone system, and chemicals that disrupt your hormone system will have an effect on every part of your body. The hormones are sort of central to the body, but they're very central to having a baby. So they're going to affect organ development, brain development, your actual fertility at the beginning, whether you reproduce or not. So they're really sort of a central part. And they've been linked to many diseases and cancers that we see. And so if I have a healthy diet, so I'm going back to the first that one of my customers came in and says, well, I'm already healthy. If I have a healthy diet, it doesn't mean that I don't have any EDCs in my system. Because they come from, what have I got? I've got 5 different places they come from, which is not necessarily, one of them's got to do with food, but they're not necessarily got to do with food. So there's phthalates, and phthalates come from plastics. And you'll remember a scare where we sort of everybody tried to get the bisphenol A out of your system, but those plastics, there's plastics everywhere. If they don't have bisphenol A in it, they've changed it to C. Those phthalates are all around us, and they enter our system. They either get absorbed through our skin or in our food. There's also chemicals that we breathe into our system, and they disrupt our hormones, and therefore in this group of phthalates will have an effect on the unborn child. There's parabens, which comes from preservatives, and that's used in the quite commonly in the cosmetic and personal care products. They're also in some of the food products. So you see parabens go into preserved turkey breast, yogurt, pancake syrups. You'll find those sort of preservatives that are coming from parabens in lots of those sort of areas. And then they again affect our hormones. Brominated fire retardants. So that's the story of that nursing mother. Remember that story, and I'm sure I've told you before. It was an investigative journalist who was breastfeeding her baby, and the baby was getting sick, and she was getting sick, and she couldn't work out what the relationship was and why they were getting sicker. And because she was an investigative journalist, she started investigating. That's how her mind worked. And after a lot of investigations into the food she eats and her environment, she worked out it was the brand new nursing chair she'd bought to breastfeed a baby on, and it was covered with fire retardants to make it safe inside the house, but the fire retardants were being absorbed through her skin and coming out her boobs in the breast milk and going straight into the baby, and that was making the baby sick. So there's been cases like that that have been tabled on the science of the world, just to show like babies can be affected, and it's not exactly, even if you're making healthy choices. Obviously diet, like what you're choosing with the diet, but we don't know what's happened to our food. I might be choosing really healthy food, but I don't know what's been sprayed on the food. The food often comes in packages, so there's that plastic, the phthalates on the outside. So I can get exposed to things that are going to affect my baby, even if I am choosing healthy diet. And then there's all the other things that you touch, these cash register receipts. I'm a bit worried because I work in pharmacy. I'm forever touching those cash register receipts. They're full of EDCs too, chemicals that are going to upset my endocrine system, my hormones. Petrol, paints. I'm decorating my house. Of course you're going to paint your house. Preserved wood, so you might have different sort of wood ornaments around the house. They might have endocrine disrupting chemicals on it. So they're everywhere. So I'm going to argue that preconception care is so important. It's more important than anything else. That maybe a month before, 6 weeks before, 3 months before, of course you've got time. And of course you've got to get you both involved. Like you've got to clean everything up. And like, I don't know how old you are when you're thinking about having a baby. Obviously it changes. But you've had all that time to accumulate these chemicals in your system. And it's no use listening to your mum saying, your mum says, oh, we didn't think about preconception care at our age. Of course, they didn't have all these chemicals. They weren't living in the world that we live in. The world that we live in isn't that clean. You go to the scientists, you ask the scientists, and they'll tell you that no matter how clean you are, no matter how much organic food that you eat, you'll still be exposed to these endocrine chemicals, and they will still pass through the umbilical cord, which has been tested to see that they're in there, into the unborn baby. So yes, clean up the act. Come and do a cleaning up, detoxification before you even think about conceiving. And see if you can remove, that's what we want to do. We want to remove as much from the system as we can before we even sort of bring a baby into the picture. So it's not hard. We run these programs and they're fun and you get healthy and fit. And also you've got other advantages. So imagine going into pregnancy in your fittest state. You're going to be able to carry that baby so much easier to term. You're going to have an easier birth, and the whole care program through the whole pregnancy is going to be a lot smoother than just suddenly going into it so quickly. And the boys, we want the boys in there too. I don't know if you've seen that movie, The Disappearing Male, but male fertility is dropping in the last 40 years. I think it's not even half. I think it's about 60% of viable sperm than there was 40 years ago. So guys, you should be part of this too. Preconception care, getting as healthy as you can. And the difference between you and the girl, like the girls already have their eggs. The eggs are there. We just want to keep them as young as possible. But you guys are making sperm. Whatever you do in the 3 months, directly, the 120 days, directly before conception, that's when you're making a sperm. So think about those 120 days. What's been happening in those 120 days? Are they the 120 most healthy days of your life? I suggest they could be, and that's where we'll guide you. We want to guide you. We want to get you into a state where you'll have the healthiest baby that you possibly can, because it doesn't take another bit of Googling. You can go and Google this. How much autism is going up in the world? How much behavioural problems with children? How many, this is an interesting one, to do with testes, where the testes doesn't drop in males. How many operations for that? That's just skyballed out of little babies having to go and do testy operations. That's just so scary, and that's directly affected by these endocrine chemicals. So preconception care, I reckon, is one of the most important and least talked about things with health. Whoever goes and talks about it, usually you have to wait to 3 months to even tell anybody that you're trying to get pregnant and you're pregnant. It's the most untalked about thing. Is the only reason you know somebody might be try to conceive is they might not have wine. But actually that's actually usually starts when they found out they're pregnant, not 6 months before, when they are 3 months before, when they're thinking, well, at Christmas time we might give it a go. So think about it. Think about it and have a bit of a thought about it. It's coming to do a health program. And both of you coming and both having the most healthiest outcome of a baby, because I love healthy babies. They're gorgeous. They're playing for it. And there's so much to hope for. So anyway, I want to also introduce some other ideas, because I know, well, you want to be healthy and you want to look into the future, and you might not be in the preconception mode right now. So I've got 8 other ideas. Wait a minute, I've got the wrong number of fingers. Let's do 8 ideas to help reduce your baby's exposure. So healthy diet, unprocessed foods, whole foods, looking for a really good source. Number 2 is try and find organic. There's plenty of organic markets out there. You can shop around. They're not necessarily more expensive. Your food bill doesn't need to go up, because the cool thing about organic food and whole foods is you don't eat as much. They sustain you for longer. You have more energy for longer. You're fuller for longer. You're not eating vast quantities of food that you tend to eat when you buy more processed thing. You eat a processed food, half an hour later, you're hungry again for another food. You eat twice as much in quantity if you're eating processed food. Try the organic way, the whole food way. You'll find you don't eat as much food. Your bills often even go down, but they're not going to go up. We want to get clean water. So as much clean water as you possibly can. We want to get clean meats too. So try and find grass-fed meats if you can't find organic meats. Try and get your pasture-raised animals, free-range eggs. Try and sort of educate yourself as far as your protein. We want lots of protein because they're building blocks of life, but we want as much clean protein as we possibly can. We're up to number 5 is, and this is something I'm really passionate about, is what you're putting on your skin. Your skin is like a big sponge and it absorbs all those chemicals. And like, at least when we eat food, the body's got its protection. It's got its liver and it gets rid of all the chemicals. We've got digestive enzymes. They break down some of these chemicals. But if I put something on my skin, it just goes zoop right into my system. So look at your skincare. I think it's so daft now. Well, the oncologists have caught on now. So if you've got breast cancer and you go to the hospital, they say stop using aluminium deodorants. Well, my argument, isn't that a bit late? They should be telling us now. Like, they should be telling us 10 years ago when the research was out there. Not when I've got a breast cancer and I'm going to see my oncologist. That's a bit late, but better late than never. But have a look at those deodorants or antiperspirants that you're using. Get to know what's in it. Look up your apps. There's some fantastic apps. There's Think Clean, Skin Deep. What's the other one? The other one's Chemical Maze. You might find some other apps. Be able to rate your products. Know that your products are rated 1 or 2 and not 10 out of 10 for chemicals, because it's those chemicals that are going to affect your unborn baby. So have a look at those chemicals, know what's in those chemicals, what's in your products. Toothpaste is another thing. Can you read all those on the outside of your toothpaste? Do you understand those ingredients? Do you understand that some of those ingredients have been banned in the States and haven't been available in Europe for 10 years? And here in Australia, we're just merrily putting it in our mouth every day. So keep on knowing what's in your skincare. A female on average puts 15 products on their skin every day. So 15 times 365, you do the maths and then times it by how old you are. That's how much product exposure you've had. So I'd be asking, what's in those products? What are those ingredients? Like, you're using it, you should know. The worst of all is perfumes, anything that says fragrance. So fragrances can be in any sort of skincare, but anything in fragrance, candles, they're the products that have been earmarked as being the most dangerous. So I'm suggesting that they might not be the most best thing to use if you're thinking about having babies. And if you want the healthiest baby, of course you do, that you can possibly have. So get rid of fragrances, artificial fragrances around the house, those smelly things that you put in the bathroom. Use pure essential oils. Pure essential oils are fantastic. Cigarette smoke, well, that's number 7, and we all know that try and keep away from cigarette smoke. Actually, there was another study I was reading that I've shared out there for you, where these pregnant women were wearing backpacks with a tube that came over the backpack near their mouth, and the tube was measuring the air they were breathing in as they were going to work in the city and coming back home in the city, and then they analysed all that air. So you might have the healthiest diet you could possibly have, and you might be putting clean products on your skin, you've got a clean house, you're only using clean products throughout the house, but what control do you have about the air that you breathe? And this study gave me a list of another 150 different chemicals that we breathe in, that we don't have any control in a busy city of what we're breathing in, and how those chemicals have got evidence where it affects the unborn child. So maybe we can't change that, but if we can change enough things to clean our insides, then they'll have a great outcome on our baby. So the 8th thing on my list, and I'll go through them again because I go off talking. But the 8th thing on the list is looking at the cleaning products around your house. So, okay, we've got 8 things to reduce our baby's toxic exposure. So the big thing obviously here is preconception care, but there's 8 other things that we're just going to share. So eating whole foods, choose organic food, find clean meats, pasture raised animals, grass-fed animals, water, finding clean water, get rid of your personal care, get really clean, squeaky clean bathroom products, deodorants, toothpaste, mouth rinses, all those products, clean choices as much as you can. Get rid of fragrance, smoke, try and find clean air. And one of the ways is to spend a bit of time each day in green space. So when you're choosing where to live, find some trees. When you're thinking about where to go for a walk, go and walk in nature, go and walk in your local park. It makes a difference because the air is cleaner. And the lucky last is household cleaning products. So be really smart about your choices there, what you wash your clothes in, what you wash your dishes in, what you're cleaning the kitchen bench in. Make it as safe and as clean as you possibly can. And that gives us all the chances for healthy babies. And so the question right back at the beginning is preconception care important? And I'm going to vote 100% yes, it's the most important thing you'll probably do in your lifetime. So come and talk to us here at the pharmacy. Come and find out about our preconception care program. There's workshops around Mossman, and I'll introduce you to a few ideas as they come up on our on the Facebook side. Keep looking, keep sharing, keep talking about preconception care. I think that's a part of the problem, is we don't talk about it enough. So out there, healthy babies, I look forward to meeting all your healthy babies, because I love babies. Babies are great. They bring joy and hope into the world. So see you next week on Health Cheeks. Thank you very much, Rosemary Manners.